Yo, what up, guys? It's Flark, and patch notes. Patch notes. We like patch notes. This is a good thing to see. We've got a lot of changes for Blood, Frost, and Unholy. Of course, Frost and Unholy are probably going to be more applicable to most. They seem to be very, very beneficial to the overall playstyle of these classes, as well as bringing the power of Unholy up, which is something it needed because it was pretty underwhelming through all of Season 1. So both things are good there, rather than just giving power without increasing the fluidity and fundamental enjoyability of the class. They did do that, so in my opinion, so good for them. Of course, I'm going to go through everything. I'm going to talk about how it impacts the meta, how it impacts the comps that you play, just how good is the talent in a vacuum. And we'll go through it together, and we'll get a feel for how things are looking in 9.1. So let's do that. It's been a while since a video from me, and I'm very eager to get back into theory crafting after a pretty long season. So no more blah blah. Let's start with Frost. Frost was an extremely high-powered spec through all of Shadowlands Season 1. A lot of people got rank 1 with it, and it was just pretty disruptive, obviously because of Heartstop. Now, what happened is they removed that, and everybody cried out in fear, because it was a big reason why Frost was so powerful. So if they just remove it, what are they doing? They're nerfing Frost again. They're nerfing everything. DK sucks, so I'm going to quit. But I, on stream and in the DK Discord, regularly said, I don't think so. Now, I wasn't perfectly confident. I don't design the game. But it did seem like they weren't going to just keep Unholy bad, remove Heartstop, and make DK a worthless spec, especially while everybody was getting these massive PvP talent reworks. I thought what they were going to do is remove Heartstop because it had so much passive power crammed into one very disruptive, very annoying to play against talent, and replace it with other more interesting options. There you go. That summed up what happened. So, first of all, we have Bitter Chill. I know everybody's been looking at this. This is a no-brainer. At 12% haste, if this is the current tuning for when it goes live, this is a no-brainer talent. You might always run this. It doesn't work pretty well into Druids, but the Druid will generally have 2 partners. And unless the partners are both Druids as well, you should be able to get value out of it somewhere. I think you might always run this. I think this might be kind of like Heartstop, but at least not as painfully disruptive and uninteractable like Heartstop was. You may think, well, Chains of Ice refreshes Chains of Ice. That's totally not interactable. It's just going to be permanently up. You're just going to be passively cleaving people and padding and just doing your rotation, and it's going to also apply Chains of Ice. Frost DK is so dumb. And you might be right, Frost DK is pretty easy, but I don't think that's what this is like. I think Heartstop is that, in a nutshell. You just walk at them and it applies. But with Bitter Chill, it has more of an answer into Wizard Cleaves. The triangle, where everything is away from you. Because if you just apply chains to everything, you're slowing them so they can't get to your healer and free CC. You're nerfing their haste, so it's like you're applying that Heartstop effect to them while you're disrupting the enemy team. And you're also on your main target, like the lock or whoever you're hitting, now you're refreshing that duration. They don't have any outs for it, so they're permanently slowed. They can't get away from you, and they have the 12% haste. While with Heartstop Aura, you would just walk at one caster, and you'd only get value out of one caster. You were completely countered by the fact that they were double wizard, but you couldn't do anything differently to change that. You just had to walk at them. So pretty bad design out of Heartstop, way better out of Bitter Chill. Still easy to apply, and it is very disruptive, but it is not in the way that Heartstop was, where it's just overwhelming, totally passive to find the spec. I think Bitter Chill is probably fine at 12%, because remember, they did remove Heartstop and a Necro Aura. So 2 talents that we had that passively gave our spec a lot of power are gone, completely gone from Frost. So having this be powerful is kind of a necessity to bring some of the power back. So Bitter Chill is great. You will use it effectively into everything. You probably don't need to spam it too much on Druids, but you keep it up with 100% uptime on your target, and then you also apply it to other people around you in the map, and make sure that they are disrupted as well. And also, if you can get a swap off, like you can grip them over and swap to them, and you Frost Strike them once to reapply chains and keep the slow on them, there's just a lot of value here, and it should be something that skilled players can take advantage of by setting up good swaps and making sure the duration can get refreshed on everybody. It's just a good PvP now. I've talked a lot about that one, more than I will talk about anything else, because obviously it's bitter chill. Everybody's been saying this. Bitter chill, it's crazy. It is. It is pretty crazy. I'm not sure if it's so crazy that it needs to be tuned back, but I would need to play with it. I think you'll run it against everything. All right, so Cadaverous removed. I think they're removing as much of the weird, mindless, just hard to understand, passive crap in the game. Cadaverous was just hard to understand passive crap. Could be really, really strong. Most people didn't even know about it, especially on the other team. And you could randomly absorb GPIs in BFA Season 4. It was weird. It's out of the game now. Yippee. Dead of Winter got some of its drawback reduced. So it used to reduce radius to 5 yards. Now it doesn't do that anymore. I still think Absolute Zero is better in every way, and I think our PvP talents are so strong that we would not need to really ever run this instead of one of the other ones that are just better, and I don't think you would ever run this. So I'm sticking with that. Death Chill got a little bit of a buff to 8 yards. They've been buffing this a lot since its original application. I think Death Chill has counter synergy with Bitter Chill, because when you apply the Death Chill effect, it removes the original Chains of Ice, I think, and it replaces it with a Death Chill root. So when the Death Chill root ends, they're not Bitter Chilled, and they weren't during the Death Chill. I don't know. I mean, a Grip 8-yard root was extremely good in Legion, but I think Power Creep in some of the toolkits of Frost, especially with an AoE stun, makes Death Chill kind of obsolete. I'd have to try it. But maybe if the Death Chill root did not remove the chains, I'm not sure if that's, I don't know. They've pumped a lot of power into this thing, but yet I still don't think it's going to be usable. Delirium, they just did a quality of life fix. I think this was genius. It didn't make any sense in its other iteration with 2 stacks, 25% each, last 15 seconds, Frost Strike, part of your rotation, so you're always going to have 2 stacks anyway. It just, the effect itself was wordy and meaningless. I think Howling Blast applies Delirium 50% for 12 seconds is great. You just need to make sure Howling Blast is part of your rotation. You can easily apply it to anybody. It also makes it easier to multi-spread it. If there's 2 targets on the team that get, damaged by Delirium, you don't have to 2-stack each player. I think that's awesome. So Delirium, just really good right now. And it was extraordinarily disruptive with Heartstop pairing with it. Now it won't be so much, so I think the fact that it instantly applies a 50% is completely fine. Remember, you're stacking that up anyway, so this is not over-tuned, but definitely usable. Transfusion removed, yeah, totally fine. So obviously Frost really got a lot removed. But, of course, and we'll go back up now, we have Strangulate, we have some general talents. Strangulate, Spell Warden, and that double everything, double charge of everything, what we'll talk about in a second. Strangulate, I think, is what is going to be absurd. So we lost Heartstop, we lost all this passive Necro Aura, Heartstop, even in Transfusion for survivability. But what we got is an unbelievable go, right? So they're moving away from Frost just passively disrupting an entire team with Frost Fever and Gushing Wounds and Heartstop Aura. That's bad design, right? You don't want your entire class to be played by itself. At least some of the buttons you press should be very impactful and take away some of that mindless passive stuff. And Strangulate, while pretty easy to use, I mean, a 5-second silence is absurd and you can do it after every sweep. At least it's a button, right? So they're moving the power into other things, other interesting dynamics, go setups, getting people's trinkets with Strang, or getting them with stun and then stranging out. At least there's options there. Heartstop just does everything forever. So this is a good option. So Strangulate helps increase the power of losing those PvP talents for sure. It is unbelievably powerful. If you do a grip, blind, AoE stun, you're going to get somebody's trinket. Generally as the healer, if the healer trinkets, you just strang them. It's like an auto. You don't even think about it. Just if a healer trinkets in your go, you immediately silence them. Because now they are sitting in a 5-second pretty hard CC while their entire team is dying. It's just a really good go continuance if they don't trinket, or go enabler if they do. And it's just extraordinarily powerful. So Frost having Strang, being able to set up this massive go by itself, grip, blind, AoE stun, silence, all by itself is, wow, very, very powerful. That combined with Bitter Chill, and then we'll look at some of these down here before we go to Unholy. Death's Echo, pretty crazy, actually. Maybe giving Night Fae DK some love with that double D&D charge. Maybe might make it easier to pull people out of stealth. That's kind of fun. Of course, what you're going to really be using it, though, for is double Death Grip, double Death's Advance. I actually, it's funny, this power creeps the Legendary so hard. I said the Legendary for Death Grip was so underpowered, nobody would ever run it in the history of the expansion. And somebody gave me shit. Like, they're like, 2 Death Grips? That's insane! Yeah, where you at now, brother? They have an ability that says Death's Advance, Death and Decay, and Death Grip will all have an additional charge. And I'm still not even sure you'd take it in all situations. So, heavily power creeps that Legendary. Honestly, you could use it with the Legendary. If we get like a double Legendary action, then you have 4 grips. That's pretty ridiculous. Maybe that's actually worthwhile. But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of good PvP talents. You got Chill Streak, Spell Warden. Of course, we're going to talk about that in a second. And then you've got you gotta run your Strang, and you've got to run your Chill thing, your Bitter Chill. So it's going to be hard to fit this in, but that's a lot of power crammed into one PvP talent. Double Death's Advance is massive mobility. Double Death Grip is massive anti-mobility, making you even more difficult to peel, even more disruptive. Better at getting more frequent goes, especially if you're playing with a monk. You can grip, blind, AoE stun, then immediately grip, leg sweep. I mean, you really keep people in. With A-Bomb Limb, you're really not going to let people leave. So, Death's Echo is a totally reasonable choice into a lot of things, but how do I predict that, right? How do I know exactly what I'm going to run Death's Echo into? You could say it's good in Wizards, because you got to stack them up more often, and having double charge is good. But it's also good against melee to peel them off your healer. You can grip both of them away. Death's Echo is great PvP talent. I just don't know when it's going to be used. It's kind of like hard to apply, like Lichborn was back in BFA Season 4, and Transfusion always was, and all of these options that is like, yeah, of course that's powerful, but when am I taking it over the other stuff? That needs some experimentation. Get ready for the Frost DK Compendium of 9.1 coming out, of course, once I can actually play this stuff and get familiarized with it. And in Spell Warden, the other general PvP talent is absolutely incredible. It's just the ultimate wizard answer. So you run Spell Warden, and then that Bitter Chill, and now you're slowing and reducing the haste of the casters, and then reducing their cast time more with Spell Warden, because that's what it does. Spell Warding, it reduces their cast time, gives you a shield, deflects damage. It's so disruptive. If they're ever, even if they're trying to CC you or just apply dots to you, they're getting this effect, even if you're not the main target. Right? So it's slowing their cast speed, then you slow it down with Bitter Chill, and finally, Frost DK has an answer into wizards. My next wizard cleave video, how to beat wizard cleave, will be filled with actual information, rather than saying, I don't actually know how to beat this either. But if you run at the healer and play real bad, sometimes you could win. Not really valuable, right? I don't know how to beat that crap. Frost DK clearly doesn't have an answer into it. But now it does. You have passive disruption. You have active disruption. You could run Spell Warden, Death's Echo, and Bitter Chill, and have so many answers for everything. You're gripping them constantly. You're pulling them in. You're keeping them slowed forever, permanently. 12% haste here. Slower casting speed from Spell Warding. It's just so powerful. So disruptive, and finally gives us an answer for... Well, it'll still be a dampener. It's not like it kills them instantly, but man, you have a much better anti-caster toolkit as Frost DK. Finally, because it just felt so bad to be passively countered by them simply because all of the power of your spec was in Heartstop Aura. And that's Frost. So what do I think about it overall? What are my final thoughts? Frost is at the same kind of power. I don't think it got much worse at all, even with removal of Heartstop, which is great from the devs. I don't think it got any better. There's no way it got better. But what it got was more well-rounded. Maybe we're not completely passively destructive against melee cleaves, but we also don't just flounder around against wizards with no real options there available to us. It's more well-rounded. It's got better, more interesting dynamics into many comps. It's got more comps it can play, probably, with the addition of Strang. That's amazing. I mean, it's just a more well-rounded, more interesting spec, but probably at about the same power. That's great. That's really great job from the devs. I mean, you can't really increase the power. Nobody wants to see their spec nerfed. They just want to see it more fun, and I think that's exactly what they did. So let's move to Unholy. Unholy got some love. Doesn't look like a lot here, but it is. So Doomburst, let's start there. I think this thing is insane. A 90% slow is insane, even if it only lasts 3 seconds. I mean, Deathcoil procs a lot with Harbinger, and the haste you'll get in the next season. You're going to get a lot more gear, so you get a lot more haste. That's easy. You also get haste from Unholy Assault. You're going to be getting more procs of Sudden Doom, and when you do, you get 90% slow and a crap load of damage, right? Bursting Wounds. That's good for the actual damage that it does. It's good for the other effects that are tied with Bursting Wounds. Of course, Necro Wounds. We'll get to that in a second. And it even can give you generation of your runes, right? So you get ranged rune generation twice, and then you get extra damage, and you get extra effects from Necrotic Wounds, and you've got a 90% slow. All of that baked into one already pretty powerful effect because it's giving you a free Death Coil that does a good amount of damage, especially when we've got that high conduit, that Death Coil conduit, very high item level in the future. Doomburst is great. It's going to be hard to run because you have a million PvP talents that you're going to want to run now. But if you just need, you're like, I can't beat this comp. I just need a little bit more output. They just won't die, but they're so close. If we had more pressure, more on-demand damage I could access, just having a tool like that is awesome for Unholy. Am I saying it's going to be an auto default run at all times? No, but sitting here seeing a PvP talent that gives you that much value packed into one situation, of course that's something you'll want in your toolkit. Switch to it. If you can't find an answer, maybe the 90% slow is what you're after. Maybe you just need that 90%. That's insane. And it's a free proc too. So you're getting a 90% slow in addition to damage and necrotic wounds and ranged pressure all for free. Because it only procs on Sudden Doom, which is a free Death Coil. That is a great PvP talent. It's an output PvP talent, and it's great. Life and Death is just a quality of life change for RBGs. I think that is clearly and utterly a trillion times better. 5% is a massive nerf until you realize that it's Virulent Plague instead of Festering Wound. Applying Festering Wounds to everybody is not something that happens often. Applying Virulent Plague to everybody happens permanently during the entire RBG. So if you run this passively, you're getting a massive amount of healing, and you get some little Dispel protection. Might end up doing a decent amount of damage with all the secondary stats we're getting in the next season again. That's going to be more Mastery as well, more Verse, big proc, 400%. That's a big multiplicative number. That stuff scales pretty well. Life and Death looks really good. It's RBG talent. I'm not sure I would ever run that in 3s ever. But wow, it looks really good. In 3s, you could run it against pet comps. If they have a ton of pets, you can actually get good value out of that sneakily. BM Hunters, Demo Locks, Unholy DKs, they're going to exist, especially BM and Unholy DK. I don't know about Demo yet, haven't looked. But that's huge. It's a massive amount of healing against those classes are perfect in RBGs. That's all you need to know about it. Necro Strike removed. We know this. Don't worry about it because Necro Wounds added. Better in effectively every way because it's a Mortal Strike effect that scales with other Mortal Strike effects, and it works with APOC now and other forms of Bursting Wounds like Doom Burst. All these other ways of bursting wounds, including Clawing Shadows, so it's like a ranged Necrotic Strike. All of this is now being applied to this Mortal Strike window that you get, where at the very beginning, your first bursted wound, you want to burst as many as you can concentrated, so you get the whole duration of that 12 seconds to be that 30% max Mortal Strike, right? It says 5% stacks 6 times. 6 times 5% is 30%. Now what this is a Mortal Strike effect. It's not Necrotic Strike, okay? It's nothing like that. Necrotic Strike was fancy damage. Necrotic Wounds is fancy Mortal Strike. It is a stacking Mortal Strike. When it absorbs healing received, that means it takes a portion of that healing done and removes it effectively. Just like a Mortal Strike effect that takes a portion of that healing done and removes it. But this Mortal Strike effect, if you stack it very high during that 12 seconds, is effectively a 30% that stacks with the other Mortal Strike effects that are in the game. Warrior, Hunter, Windwalker. This is massive for us It's so powerful. It makes you have these little 12-second windows where you want to pool wounds, burst them all. Then at the end of the 12-second window, right before it's about to run out, pool your wounds, burst them all. Because if you burst one and it starts that 12-second timer, look at what this says. Adding a stack does not refresh the duration. Okay? So that means you have a 12-second window, 12 seconds, every block of 12 seconds. That's what you're doing here. So if you burst one wound, you start that 12-second timer. Now you don't want to burst the rest of the 4 much later, and you're like, oh crap, I don't have wounds, I don't have runes, I got to generate this, and then time is ticking. Then you're using your windows very improperly. If you pool wounds at the end and then refresh, and then at the beginning of every 12 seconds you burst a ton, you're getting massive value out of these windows of time. Very high skill cap effect. Unholy is already a very high skill cap class. This is amazing. To bake that much power into a class, but make it really disruptive to, you know, bad players on the other team, or bad players on your team can't use it well enough. I mean, just skill cap here and there. It's amazing. Also, it provides a copious amount of healing. This single-handedly fixes Unholy's tankiness issues. There you go. I mean, what do you say about getting healed for a lot? It's unbelievable. It's sustained. It's frequent. Every 12 seconds you get a burst of healing. It single-handedly fixes Unholy tankiness issue. There's no other way to phrase that. Run this talent always. I think if there was ever a PvP talent that's always, always, always by default as Unholy, it's this one. And then Raise A-Bomb got nerfed. Who cares? It's wound generation is going to be way more valuable now with the necrotic wounds and the necro bargain and this crazy build that people are coming up with. That, of course, Unholy DK Guide video 9.1, probably going to be an hour and a half long. It's going to be big. I'll see you then. Wound generation is so valuable. Raise A-Bomb has been kind of like default picked for 3 years. So, yeah, totally fine. It's a little nerf. Doesn't matter. All of our other things are ginormous buffs. And you probably might still run this in certain situations. Then, of course, you have those general PvP talents. We already talked ad nauseum about Strang. Yes, it's that insane for Unholy too. Of course, I don't think I need to say that. Strangulate, Blood Frost Unholy. That includes Unholy, right? So, and Death's Echo and Spell Warden, they're insane. We talked about them. I'm assuming what you want now is like, well, which 3 do we run? Let's pump the brakes on that, okay? That's going to have to be in the guide video. I'm looking at these things. I'm seeing 6, 7 PvP talents I want to run, right? So that's an amazing feeling, right? Necro Wounds is amazing. Raise A-Bomb still fine. Good burst windows. Doom Burst, rather. Doom Birth. That would be a very bizarre experience. Yeah, anyway, Doom Burst. Very, very, very high output. Not much for the utility, but the 90% is actually extremely valuable, but it's only for 3 seconds. Strang obviously has much more utility. It's only a 15-yard range, but 5 seconds of silence. You grip him in there, you asphyxiate into silence. You've got 10 seconds of CC by yourself. That's remarkable. Spell Warden, the ultimate Wizard Cleave answer, paired with Spell Eater, that Unholy has for a PvE talent. That's asinine. Ultimate Spellcaster Lockdown, and of course Death's Echo. I just talked about all the reasons why this is good. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Necro Bargain 7. Now the Necro Bargain should be better with the Necro Wounds, that it gets so much value out of that by having short Necro Apocalypse. There's really 7 PvP talents that I would want to run in all situations. So that is for another day, my friends. We're going to have to experiment. We're going to have to play it against different comps. We're going to have to see which talent is situationally better into which comps or playing which comp. We're going to have to find all this information out. But I can tell you one thing for sure. Let's do the Unholy recap because you're going to love this one. Papa Flark was right. What did I say at the end of my other videos? I had a motivational message for you guys. It's been a long time, but look, the season lasted a long time. I said season 2, right? I didn't know when season 2 was going to come out, but I said that when it comes out, that's going to be your reckoning. Unholy has a bright spot in the future, and you guys are going to get really, really good at the spec. So when it comes to fruition, that the power is there, you are going to be ready to exploit that. And that is exactly what happened. Unholy, with these changes, is a monster. But not only that, they didn't just buff your abilities and make you do too much damage. They gave you fun stuff to work with. So Unholy is a monster with incredibly impactful utility and damage options and should be very, very powerful in so many different comps. I predict Unholy Shadow Priest, Unholy Aflock, and of course the TSG. Oh my god, with a silence, that's insane. Even new comps, maybe like Unholy Hunter, we've got PHDK, Unholy, maybe Ebola, Feral DK. You could have Windwalker DK, of course, this could be insane. Unholy got its day. And I said it would, so Prophet Flark, trust me on this kind of stuff. I said it Season 2, and here we are, going into Season 2, and you guys are thrilled, and you should be. Unholy is looking unbelievably good. So, these talents, they're impactful. You know what they do. I know what they do. What I need now is a season to release, because in order to find the perfect 3 for every situation, there's 7 that I want to use. In order to narrow that down to 3, I need to know how talents feel against certain comps, when I'm playing certain comps. Which ones, maybe they just don't live up to the hype. Maybe they are absolutely required. I need to play with all these different builds, but having that much customization and options, that's incredible. So going into 9.1, not only are both DK specs Tier 1, S tier, rank 1 viable, bar none, they're doing it in an interesting way. Unholy and Frost have customization, options, utility, and just more answers, more well-rounded answers into the plethora of comps that you will play against, both for survivability and for output. That is a big high five, a big props to Blizzard for doing that to our spec. We waited patiently, and I'm pretty sure we were rewarded. So the bottom line is DK in 9.1. Will I play Frost or Unholy? Both. What comp will I play? My god, we're going to have a lot of them. I'll get a tier list for you coming up in 9.1. What talents will I run? Same thing. 9.1, we need some experimentation because you have a lot of fantastic options, and that is something you should want to hear. So, 9.1 is going to come out. I'm going to have a cycle of videos. That means tier lists for comps, both guide videos, Frost and Unholy, tier lists for maybe like legendaries or covenants, if that needs to be changed at all. I don't think so, but we'll see. Just a huge development cycle, and then maybe I'll be remotivated to re-pick up that comp, Know Your Comp series. The reason that got so stale for me, and the reason I kind of have been off YouTube for a little bit, is because the season has gone on for many months with no changes, and it's not looking good for my motivation. But 9.1 is going to fix all of that. Very excited. Oh, wait! I forgot something. Blood still sucks. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Can't wait to see you then.